So this weekend I was playing with GPT-3 from OpenAI, and I thought that it could make a good tutorial to show how it could be integrated with Orbis in order to go through some classic functions of the Orbis SDK. And so basically, like, this is a very simple app. You can ask a question like the traditional search engine. So for example, I can ask, what is MetaMask? But instead of crawling through the internet like Google is doing and return you a bunch of web page, it's going to query the AI models from OpenAI and then returns you what it thinks is the best answer for the question. So and then like once the answer has been created, it will be shared on Orbis. And so that's mainly going to be the thing that I focus on today, is how we actually got the integration with Orbis working. So here it's taking some time. That's the main issue with it right now. Maybe I can go through other questions to see how it's working. But so basically, if you go through like on these questions, if you go on this question, for example, you can see that this question has a title and a body and a unique stream ID, and this is a stream ID for ceramics. So basically, this is an Orbis post with some tags. And I will show you exactly how I got it to work using Orbis. So here, the very cool thing is that you don't need any backend. You don't need any database to actually store the answers. It's all decentralized using Orbis SDK. So the Orbis SDK is a JavaScript library that can let you integrate with the whole Orbis protocol in a very, very simple way. So maybe most of you, if you started working on the hackathon, you've been able to install it. It's a classic NPM package. And then you have a whole documentation on all of the functions that you can actually use with the Orbis SDK, right? So the first thing to do once you install is to import the SDK in your project, and then you can actually initialize Orbis using a function like this, and then you can do you can have access to all of those functions here, and even some custom ones that are not necessarily documented. So usually the process once the Orbis object has been initialized is that you will usually want your users to connect. So in that case, the only function that you need to call is the Orbis connect function. And if you've explored our web app, you can see that you can actually get the users to be connected using different providers. So it can be a classic window Ethereum provider, which will usually trigger MetaMask, or it can also be a Solana wallet, or even something more custom, which is really like creating a deal from scratch. And so this is what I did for this project, where all of the posts, instead of being shared by the user, they were shared by a classic, by a global deed key. So I will not necessarily go through the connect function today. What I will go through mainly is the create post function and the get post function. So the create post is basically a very simple function that can share a post on Orbis, right? So it can have a large amount of unique parameters in it, right? So you can set a body, like this would share a post that would be just GM, for example. You can have a title. So in this example, this is the title, for example, and this is the body. It can also have tags. So you can see here that it has a tags array, and this is here like the VOS or tags that are shared on Orbis as well. And it can have multiple things like mentions. You can have nested replies with fields like the reply to. You can also have the context. So here, for example, if we want to explore exactly what this stream looks like, you can go to serscan.com. This is a tool that we built to let you explore what's happening on the ceramic network. And basically, you can go to any stream ID and see the exact content of a stream, right? So in that case, as I was saying, the body of the field is here. The tags is actually this array of tags. The title is this, and the context is the name of the product. This can be really helpful, setting the context when you want to retrieve posts that have been shared only in a specific context, right? So the issue is that if you don't use the context, then your post might be lost on the global feed, but here they can really be contextualized. And so usually what we are seeing is that every app's building on Orbis is using its custom context. So the context can be a string like this, or it can be a stream ID. In that case, when it's a stream ID, you can have associate specific rules to it, like a channel, gated for or verifiable credentials or specific access control conditions. But here is just a simple string. And the very cool thing is that because I set this Ask AI context, when I go to this page, basically you will see later that this is a simple get posts function that is returning all of the results that are from this specific context. So instead of returning all of the posts shared on Orbis, it's returning those very specific posts shared in this context. So let's go back to the documentation. So you saw most of the fields that can be used here. There is also a custom data field that you can use however you want. So if you have specific needs in your application for posts to host like richer sets of data, you can use the data field and really push like any kind of content that you want to it. And then you have custom stuff like encryption rules. Yes, Charles. Yeah, so this is a very interesting question. So usually what we are seeing, so again, like this is going to be a good example where you can have, for example, let's go to this post, right? So this is a question about how does the signal messaging works. And you can see here that, again, it has the body. If you go to this stream ID in SearchScan, you will see also that the context is SKI. So in that case, having the context set to SKI is super useful for this article to appear in this global, browsing section. But maybe what you want is also to be able to, access only the posts that have been shared in this specific category, right? The internet and telecom category. So this is what I'm doing here. And you can see that it's returning all of the posts that are shared both in this specific context as well as in this specific tag. So this can be useful if you want to have multiple, searchability. So let's say that you're creating, for example, a video app, and maybe you have, videos that are about sports or others that are about, technology. Then you might want the context to be the name of your application and the tags to be the tag of a specific category that your video is in. And so in that case, you could have multiple feeds where you could see, or you could display all of the videos shared in a specific tag within your context. Whereas if you're using only the context, you could not necessarily have this really nice filtering ability. So usually the tag is just an additional way to have advanced filtering within your application. So you can just basically, when you set tags, it's an array, and the tag must have a slug and a title, and that's basically it. So, but I will show you exactly the code that I used for this page. For example, I can actually dive into it right now, or maybe just let me go through this function here, which is the get post function, and you can see exactly what I'm saying. I believe I documented it. Yeah, exactly here, for example. So you can see, so the get post is just a function that you can query within your application to return all of the posts shared in whatever environment you want. So it can be posts shared in a context or post shared by a specific user, right? So if you call the Orbis get post did using the did parameter, for example, it would return only the post shared by a specific user. If you use the Orbis get post with the master field, it will return only the post shared as a comment of a parent post. So it can be used also for some very focused conversation. Or as I was showing the use case before, like if you're using the get post function with the context parameter and the tag parameter, you can return results shared within a specific context and within a specific tag. So it can really be helpful to have like advanced filtering. So that's the get post function. And the type of results that it returns is this. It's basically an array of all of the details that you need to display the post in a nice way. So you have the creator details, you can display the username of the users who actually share the post, as well as its profile picture. You have the body of the post, and you have also like all of us things like, was it shared in a specific group or in a specific context? Is it a reply to a post or just a parent post? If it's a reply, you can have the details of the parent post be highlighted as well. So this is what we are using in the Orbis web app, for example, so that you can say, okay, this post is a reply to this specific post without having to do two different queries. And you have also the specific amount of likes, of replies, of reactions that a post can have. And so this is going to be an array, and the results will always look like this, and it always has the stream ID. Yes. Yeah. So if you don't put any, it will return all of the posts shared in the context, and it won't care about the tag. So it will return just all of the posts shared in a specific context. Then if you specify one tag, it will return the post shared in a specific context and in a specific tag. So usually, for example, in this example, like the browse answers example, what we do is I can actually dive into the code. So here, for example, it's going to be this, where you can see that within my application, I just set, okay, give me the post shared in this specific context. So in that case, it will return all of the posts shared in the context. But if I go to the category page, which is actually the one when if I go to the internet and telecom page, it's going to be this page that I'm showing here. And so in that case, it will return, I'm calling the get post function with the context and a tag. So it will filter the results returned by the context query to also filter them based on the tag. So if you want to return all of the results from your application, you can just use the context field. If you want to have an advanced filtering, you can also filter using the tag field. Is that clear? Yeah, and we can also cover those questions at the end of the call. I just want to maybe, as you were saying, like go through SDK function first, and then we can answer like more advanced questions. But definitely keep them coming in the chat. It's super interesting. So that was the get post function. Maybe I can go through so in this example, we just use like mainly the create post function and the get posts function. So those are the two main features. So this is what I was showing here, right? So this is the query that returns only the posts shared in a specific context and in a specific category. And then to display them, it's fairly simple. Here, for example, I just have a component in which I pass all of the articles, which is an array, and then I just loop through them and display all of them. So you can see that it has all of the field that I showed before. It has the stream ID, the title is in the content object, same thing for the body, and the stream ID can be used to link to SERScan, for example, like some people are doing for Etherscan when you have a specific transaction hash. So, and the only difference between the two is the fact that it's not using the tag here. So maybe I can go through some other features of the SDK. One that is used a lot, for example, is about reaction, right? So when you shared a specific post, you can have users actually react to a post. So if you are on the Orbis web app, and if you like a post, it will call this function, right? So this is the Orbis React, and you just basically pass two parameters. One is the actual stream ID of the post, and the other one is the type of reaction that you want. So for now, we have three reactions: the like, the haha, which is to laugh, and the don't vote, which is to indicate that this is a low quality content. So this is the reaction that can be used if you're building something like a feed. And then we have specific functions based on the groups, right? So groups are an important part of Orbis. We might change a bit the way we designed them for now in the future, but for now, that's really how it works. So you can just create a group super easily. You say you give it a PFP and a profile picture and a name, and then it's going to be created in Orbis. It's going to be stored on Ceramic. And then once you actually created a group, then you can have users join the group. And the cool thing, so it's called, to do this, we call, I believe, the set group member function. And so in that case, it's going to get users to join a group if you set this part. So you pass the stream ID of the group as a parameter and a Boolean, a simple Boolean here as a second parameter to say if the user is joining or leaving a group. But the cool thing, if the user is part of a group, is that if you call the get post function with some specific algorithm here, like the recommendations algorithm, for example, it will return only the posts in the groups that the user is in, or from the users that the user is following, right? So for the follows, we have simple functions where the user is connected, you call the Orbis set follow function, and you pass as a parameter the did that you want the user to follow, as well as if you, same thing, like the active Boolean field, which is either true if the user is following a new user, or false if you want the user to like unfollow someone. So using just for those like 4 or 5 different functions, you can really have a nice social feed experience where you can have a field, you can have an experience customized per user based on the groups that they joined or based on the users that they're following, as well as have some like very nice filtering abilities using the get post function. And the very cool thing is that all of the content is going to be decentralized. It's stored on the Ceramic network. And you don't have to set up any backend, right? So you can really have this like social experience in a few hours of work without having to set up any backend, and it's fully decentralized. So maybe let's go back a bit to this example here, where we have again the post. I just wanted to go through the function that I used to actually create a post. So here I'm using, like, because I'm in the API environment of Next.js, so I'm using something, I'm using this global object for Orbis, but usually it would just be Orbis create post. You can see, I will go through the documentation at the same time for you to be able to visualize it. So you can see that this is the example in documentation. And here, in this live example, you can see that it's actually very similar, but it has a few more things. So the body, for example, is going to be the answer generated by OpenAI. The title is going to be the question that was initially asked by the user. And the context is going to be the one that I showed. And the tags here is an array generated based on another AI library that is automatically classifying the post based on the content of the answer. So basically, this is exactly, you can see that this is exactly how the example works here. So then I'm wondering if I should go through other functions. I know that we had a user who mentioned the upload media function, which I just added here. So this is something that we added recently, but basically you can attach media object to posts. No, and for this we have or maybe someone, Charles, can you check if you could mute the person that is actually so basically we have a specific integration with Pinata. So when you initialize the Orbis object, if you pass your own Pinata credentials, then you can just call the Orbis upload media function, and it will automatically push the image, for example, that you uploaded to IPFS, return you the IPFS hash, which you can then use, which will then be returned by this function. And so you can use it in the create post here, where you can have an array of media attached to your post, and it will be nicely displayed on Orbis. So this is something that you can try as well if you want to. And just to go back to the post, the very nice thing about Orbis is that, because it's using Ceramic, a post can have different updates, right? So once you share the post, maybe you will want to edit it. It doesn't have to be immutable, but the cool thing is that only the actual creator of the post can update the content. Otherwise, it's going to be refused by Ceramic. And so we have two functions here. The first one is the edit post function, which can give you the ability to let users edit their content if they want to. And we also have the delete post function. So in that case, again, it can only be called by the user. And so you just, the user can call the delete post function with a specific stream ID, and it's going to remove the post from the feed and from its feed as well. So those are some also nice things that you can have in your application. One thing that I didn't mention that seems important is to go back to the connect function, which is usually the first one that you will use when you want your users to be able to perform actions, right? They must be connected. If you call the create post without calling this connect function, those functions are not going to work. The users absolutely need to be connected to be able to write stuff. And so I mentioned here the fact that we have, you can use different providers and different chains, but I forgot to mention this. And this is an important parameter. So if you want to use private features such as direct messages or token gated content, you must have the user set up its own lead protocol account. And so from the development, it's super easy. You just pass true, you just use lead true. Like here, for example, you can see that it's set to false. If it was set to true, it would generate, basically, instead of having one MetaMask sign function, sign model, it would have two. One would be to log into Ceramic, and the other one would be to log into Lit. So usually what we recommend is, if you're not using direct messages or if you're not using token gated content, we recommend to pass false, so that the users only have to sign one MetaMask message to log in, and it's going to be a better experience. And then one last thing is that if once your users sign the message generated by this function, it will create an object in local storage that can then be used by the SDK to reconnect automatically the users to their own account, so they don't have to sign the message every time that they open their app. And so for this, you can call the Orbis is connected function when your app is actually loading. Every time that the app is refreshed, you can call this function. And so this is really great because it can actually get users to be automatically logged in if they refresh your app. So for example, if I go to app.orbis.club, you can see that without having me to do anything, I'm automatically being logged into my account. And so that's because I'm using the is connected function, which automatically logs me in, and then I could actually start sharing stuff. So this is a recommendation, like make sure that you actually call this function when your app is loading, so that the user experience can be even better. And then if you want to delete this session that is stored in your local storage, you can just call the logout function, and it will really log the user out from everything, from Ceramic, from lead protocol. And then when the user actually refresh Orbis, it won't be logged in automatically. So this can be also a nice function to add. Maybe I can stop for some other questions. Yeah. Yeah, amazing. So The token gated content is a super easy function, is a super easy feature to add in Orbis. It's natively embedded within the SDK. So basically, if you call just this function, it will share a post that everyone can read, right? It's going to be fully public on Ceramic and on Orbis, but maybe you want to share content only to your community, right? And so in that case, or only with your friends. And so in that case, you can use the encryption rules object. So instead of having only one JSON object passed as a parameter, you would have two. And the second one will be the encryption rules. And the encryption rules can have two different types. The most famous one is the token gated experience. So for example, if you go to the Orbis group here and to this specific channel, the token gated channel. So this is an example of a channel that is gated using ENS domains. So here in this example, you can see that this is a post that I shared a few hours ago. If I go to searchscan.com here, you can see that the body is actually empty, but it has an encrypted body, right? And this encrypted body contains the encrypted information about the actual content of the post, which is only testing here. And so what it says is that it specified that only the user that own a specific asset from this contract. So in that case, it checked that it's an ERC 721, it checked that it's against the balance of function, and it specified that it must have at least one asset from this contract. So in that case, basically what this encrypted body says is that only the users who own one ENS domain NFT can actually decrypt the content. And so if you call the get post function, it will return the post like this, right? So you can't display anything if you have this kind of information. But what we have in the SDK is a function to actually decrypt this encrypted body object. So if you go, I believe it's here, yeah. If you go to the decrypt post function, you can see that you can actually pass this encrypted body parameter. Actually, no, you pass the wall content. So in that case, you would pass like everything, and it would include the encrypted body, which can be used to which will then automatically return from this function the actual content of the post, right? So in that case, if you would call decrypt post function, it's going to check in the background if the user has set up its lead protocol account. So this is what I was showing before in the connect function. And then if it has, it will check if the user actually owns the asset. And if the user owns the asset, it will return the actual content of the message in the result field, right? So here, this is exactly what's happening. You can see that if I refresh the page, it first loads all of the posts, and then it's actually decrypting them. And because I own the specific ENS domain, it's going to return me this result, which you can then display in your app. So the different steps here, or basically you create a post with some encryption rules. We have an example here, so you can use exactly this one. In this example, I believe it's going to encrypt post for NFT Azuki holders, but you could change the contract address. You could change the chain if you wanted to, for it to be like Polygon or any other EVM chains. This would encrypt the post based on those rules. And then when you actually get the post from your own context, for example, you can just pass the wall, content field to the decrypt post function, exactly like we do here, right? And it's going to either return the results or return an error. And in that case, you can just display that the user doesn't have access to the specific content. Over any other questions, Charles? Yeah, exactly. So for now, yes, so it's only the body exactly that is being encrypted. We are working on also encrypting the media, but this hasn't been done for now. So for now, it's going to be only the body, and yeah, basically that's it. So we will be releasing at some point a way to also token gate media, but for now, that's something that should be done. There are multiple different ways to do it. You can just, also use the lead protocol libraries, or even use our, like, helpers function that we have in the SDK. If you want to, you can just, ask your question in the Discord, and I will point you to the right function that you can use in the SDK to encrypt maybe like a base 64 version of the image, for example. And there are ways that you can encrypt way more content than just the body, but for now, like, the specific integration that I demoed is only to encrypt the body. Yeah, which one would you want us to answer? Amazing. That sounds great. Thank you, Charles. Thank you, everyone, for joining, and excited to see what you're building, and see you tomorrow if you're interested in it. Amazing. Thank you.